This time it's an employee named Cynthia who wants to attend her friend's wedding out of town. When he boards an inner-city bus, he is disturbed by a scary female ghost. Cynthia sat restlessly in the comfortable seat of the inner city bus. In fact, he couldn't wait to get home for his best friend's wedding. However, the feeling of anxiety had been growing inside him ever since he got on the bus. The bus drove down a quiet highway in the middle of the night. The moonlight only reflects mysterious shadows along the road. Cynthia tried to relieve her anxiety by listening to music through headphones, but a strange feeling kept coming over her. As the bus passed through a dense forest, the atmosphere on the bus suddenly changed. The sound of the wind rustling and the leaves swaying outside made the atmosphere even more tense. Cynthia felt like something was watching her outside the window. He tried to ignore that feeling, but as time went on it became stronger and stronger. Suddenly, the bus lights flashed and finally went out. Cynthia felt her heart beat fast. The atmosphere inside the bus was dark, only adorned by the twinkling lights from outside shining through the cracks in the windows. Cynthia tried to take out her cell phone to illuminate the surroundings, but it kept turning off. As darkness enveloped the bus, Cynthia felt a chill wash over her. He heard soft footsteps on the bus path. Cynthia held her breath and tried to stay calm. However, fear began to penetrate every fiber of his body. Suddenly, the seat next to Cynthia was empty. He felt something there. He looked in horror, as if at the shadowy figure of a woman in an ancient white dress. Her long hair covered her pale face. His eyes seemed empty, expressionless. Cynthia has difficulty making sounds. Who are you?" he whispered, trembling. However, the woman smiled mysteriously and continued to look at Cynthia. The sound of the wind became louder, and the bus felt like it was moving at an unusual speed. Cynthia felt like some supernatural force was controlling the bus. You can't come closer," Cynthia shouted, trying to get away. But the woman was moving closer with slow but terrifying movements. Cynthia felt a cold touch on her cheek. The woman was now standing in front of him, his face becoming lighter and lighter. His lips parted, revealing sharp, scary teeth. Cynthia screamed at the top of her lungs and tried to escape to the back. Suddenly, the bus lights came back on and the atmosphere returned to normal. The woman just disappeared. The other passengers on the bus woke up and saw Cynthia gasping for air. They felt nothing and were confused by Cynthia's reaction. Cynthia could only hastily explain what had just happened, but it was as if it was all just a nightmare. The journey continued, and the bus finally arrived at Cynthia's hometown. He went down trembling and feeling relieved that the terrible journey was over. However, when he turned back towards the bus, he saw a blurry image of a woman outside the window. Cynthia bit her lip, trying to push away her fear. What have you just been through? Is it just his imagination, or Is there something more terrifying waiting for him in the dark? To this day, Cynthia still feels anxious every time she remembers that scary trip on the inner city bus. More precisely, May 1st, 2017. It was probably 10 p.m. when I looked at the clock on my device screen. The car my father drove with me was on the way from Solek to Padang. That night the air outside was very cold. The street is very quiet. It was dark. There were no lights along the road. Only the lights of the car we were driving could break through the darkness. I wanted to rest for a while, but was afraid to let my dad drive alone. Also, it started to rain outside. It's quite difficult for Dad to observe the situation on the road at night, especially when it's pouring rain. Except his vision started to become less clear. Of course, because there were no street lights at all, I opened my device to view Google Maps. Meanwhile, outside, the rain became heavier and heavier. Dad looked in the car's rearview mirror several times to make sure there were other vehicles passing on that road. However, nothing. That night was truly strangely quiet. The rows of trees on both sides of the road seemed to engulf us deeper into darkness. After a few kilometers of travel, we now pass a road with many large trees on the left and right. Meanwhile, behind the trees is a very steep ravine. Because there were two of us, that night I felt I had to be quick to handle any situation. My dad kept complaining about being nearsighted, which made me a little worried. However, we felt a little relieved just then. Through the rearview mirror, a beam of light began to shine through the car we were driving. We got closer and saw it was a white Innova car. I don't know where the car appeared, because from the start I emphasized that there was no other car other than my father's car. Suddenly, the string became very bright. The white Innova car has very bright headlights. It helped my father somewhat when he saw that the road was covered in darkness. Dad drove after the car passed us for the next 10 minutes. I felt something strange. My eyes can hardly stay awake, however, I tried to fight it. Meanwhile, saw my father still trying to follow the white Innova. I vaguely saw the car in front turn left. Before I could really suppress the rush of sleep, I quickly stopped my father, who also wanted to turn left to follow the previous car in front of us. My father suddenly slammed on the brakes. He stammered, "Where are you going? Are we going home? Go straight, Dad. There are no winding roads here," I said. "I remember the streets here very clearly. There are no intersections, just straight roads." Even when I looked up Google Maps to be sure, Dad's face was a bit pale. I tried to calm him down. I assured him again that there was no fork in this road. I brought him some mineral water to drink in the bag, half of which was still left. I opened the lid and gave it to my dad outside. The rain is still falling heavily. The darkness of the night surrounded us. In addition, the blanket of white mist makes the night even more tense. A while later, my hair stood up when I suddenly heard a woman crying behind the bushes. Later, the crying turned into a scream that made stomach tighten. His shrill voice broke the silence of the night. I saw the look on my father's face. I think he heard it, too. Dad quickly stepped on the gas and took our car away from there. After calming down a bit, my father saw my face. Son, did you see that car turn left? Dad asked. Son, I'm serious. I just want to make sure the Innova car goes on the left. Dad continued. I nodded. I saw my father's expression, which had previously appeared relaxed, now become worried and scared. It's not normal for him to act like that. Why? I asked again. Dad grasped her chest. There was a moment of silence. The air in the car is still hot even though the coolant is still running. A woman's scream kept ringing, causing my heart rate to increase until my body was hot and cold. The road here is scary, my father said after a moment of silence. On our left there is a ravine. Dad knows that, but I don't know why I wanted to follow the car. Dad felt like he was half awake and half unconscious. If Dad hadn't rested sound here, we would probably be in other realms now. Son, my father explained in a very low voice. After hearing my father's words, the hair on the back of my neck suddenly stood up, yes. Although in reality I already knew because I knew this path by heart. But that was my first horror experience. I have never experienced anything as scary as this before, Father. But before I also saw that there was another path, but the path was short. As if it was cut off, I explained, yes, that's just a fantasy. The Innova car, whether real or not, seems to intentionally make us feel comfortable, as if paving the way for our car to go on a long journey without end or death. I'm very grateful. I felt God still loved me and my father that night, honestly. I can't say anything about this evening. Dad also told us that the road we were walking on was haunted. After researching, it is true that the road from Solok to Padang is famous for being haunted. Many victims are believed to have died. The victims are usually a couple or a woman and a man. There have been cases such as falling into a ravine, having an accident, and even losing the car and being swallowed whole on the road that my father and I just passed. From that day on, I never wanted to sleep while traveling again because of the trauma that night. The road from Solok to Padang passes through a forest with cliffs and deep ravines on both sides. During the journey, there are no turns or intersections, so there is only one straight road. That's a scary horror story that actually happened. Thank you for listening to our horror story tonight. Don't forget to click like if you like the horror story that we brought. Click subscribe and activate the notification button if you don't want to miss our next horror story video.